Hello everybody, this is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. I'm back with another video. Now this video, it might take a little bit. I'm going to try to make it as short as I possibly can, but this is going to be a little bit lengthy because we're talking about, well, you already know because you've seen the title of the video. We're talking about season 1 of Zalman King's The Red Shoe Diaries. Now, The Red Shoe Diaries was a TV series, an erotic TV series that ran on Showtime from 1992 to 1997. It ran a total of 5 seasons. And Zalman King, who he started off as like an actor. He'd been in, I believe he was Galaxy of Terror, which is like a Roger Corman Alien knockoff, and he'd been in other films too as an actor and stuff. But over time, he started, working his way into becoming a writer director, and he co-wrote 9.5 Weeks and Wild Orchid 1 and 2. He co-wrote and directed those movies. To Moon Junction, did writing and directing on those. And he says here on his interview that he realized that he didn't realize at first that he was becoming such a big auteur of erotic cinema. That he thought he was just making films that were just stories about romance and love and things like that. But people took it more as more like erotic cinema. And so he decided he could go one of two ways. He can either go and just do straight up dramas, cut out the sexuality, stuff like that. And, he figured, well, nobody's going to really care about that. Or he could go the other way and, embrace the erotic aspect of his dramas and, which he did. And then he went to Showtime and he proposed this series. And so he did the pilot, which basically is pretty much a 90-minute movie. And the pilot did well and, was a big hit on Showtime, and it turned into this series, and this series lasted for 5 seasons. Now, the pilot, the story concerns Jake and Alex. Now, Jake is played by David Duchovny right there. You got to remember, this is 1992, so this is kind of right before we started to know him as Fox Mulder. And I mean, David Duchovny had been on Twin Peaks. He'd, done some other stuff in some movies like, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. He's been in some stuff, but, he really didn't have that, like, real breakout until X-Files. And this here, this got him a little bit more into the public eye, but, of course, it wasn't until he did Fox Mulder on X-Files that he really broke out. But, okay, now the story is about, Jake, played by David Duchovny, and his girlfriend, Alex. They're getting ready to get married and things like that, and Jake doesn't understand why, but Alex ended up killing herself, and he doesn't know why, and he's destroyed. He's completely grief-stricken. He loved her so much and everything else. And, the pilot opens up with him, being at her funeral and things like that. And he's going through some of her stuff days later, and he finds she has a journal. And, he reads in the journal that, although Alex was, very much in love with him, and he brought so much joy and happiness to her life, he kind of found out that Alex tended to be a girl who had kind of a self-destructive nature about herself, that it wasn't really anything that Jake did, but when she was the kind of person that, like, when she, gets, any sort of happiness going into her life, or someone who brings joy into her life or anything like that, she can't handle it, and she tends to be self-destructive. She destroys it. And the way Alex did this with Jake in their relationship was that she started flirting with this guy who was both a construction worker, but he worked as a shoe salesman in a shoe store. And she goes into the shoe store, and he sells her a pair of red shoes, and hence Red Shoe Diaries and stuff like that. And she starts this flirtation with him and everything else. And, like I said, she tends to be self-destructive and everything else. And in a moment of desperation, she decides she's going to have an affair with this guy. And she does, and, they start having this torrid affair and everything else. But the thing is Alex, now, before we go turning Alex into this very villainous character and stuff, you do realize, like, if you watch the pilot, you do realize that Alex is very sorry about what she's done. She's very remorseful about what she's done. she doesn't want to lose Jake. Jake has been the best thing in her life, all these years and all this other kind of stuff. And she has no way. She's trying to figure out how she's going to be able to straighten this shit out. And at one point she goes to this guy and tells him, we're not going to have this affair anymore. I'm going to go marry my fiance and we're going to be together, and you and me, we're not going to have this affair anymore. Well, he basically tells her no, nothing's going to stop. And if you try to stop the affair and everything else, I'll go to your man and I'll tell him what kind of woman you really are, what he's going to be, the kind of woman he's going to be marrying and all this other kind of stuff. And Alex, feeling that there's no way out for her, and she knows Jake's going to find out eventually, and that Jake is going to leave her, and she doesn't want this, and she can't handle the stress of it, and she ends up killing herself. And so Jake, finding out what was going on, he confronts the man, they get into a fight and this and that and everything else. And then at one point, while Jake was reading her diary, that she mentioned, she didn't understand why she did what she did. She wanted to know why she did what she did. And she decided, I should maybe go ahead and put an ad in a paper and ask, women, have you been betrayed? Have you been betrayed by another? I'm trying to find, the answers why and all this other kind of stuff. Could you please send them to Red Shoes and everything else? And Jake, realizing that, he doesn't know everything about women. He's actually very surprised at how little he knows about women and what's in their hearts and the secrets that they can keep and things like that. And so he decides that he's going to go ahead and he's going to do what Alex proposed doing in her diary. So he does put the ad in the paper and saying that he wants to, if women could please send him, ideas or stories, diaries, anecdotes, things like that could help him kind of understand what had happened, where he had gone wrong, what could he have done better, what, that sort of thing. And, that's what ends up leading into the series. Now, every episode is basically, you have our main character, Jake, and his dog, Stella. And every episode always goes with him going to his mailbox, taking out letters and things like that. And then, he starts to read the letter and then the story unfolds. Now, one thing that is really, really good about this series is, okay, now, first of all, if anybody's all like, dude, this series, is there any nudity in it? Do we get to see sex? Do we get to see, some, beautiful female flesh and everything else? I'll tell you right now, yes, you do. And it's breathtaking. It truly is. The women in this movie or these series, they're gorgeous, they're sexy, they're beautiful. Yes, there's TNA. So if you want all that, then yeah, this is definitely, you're going to get your fill of this one. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started watching this series, that's really all I cared about. I just wanted to see beautiful naked women. I didn't really care what the show was about. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to see beautiful naked women. And I got to see that. And I was so pleased about that. You got very, very lovely women on this show. And, but this comes with some surprises. Okay. First of all, yeah, you get beautiful women, but you know what? You get a lot of name actors and actresses on the show. People who are already well-established actors and actresses, people who are up-and-comers, before, here we go, like right here, you see. Before we came to know him and love him as Joey Tribbiani on Friends, that's Matt LeBlanc. He was an up-and-comer. This was one of the first things he ever did was this show. You have Joan Severance, who... hang on a minute. I got a picture of her right here. So, where is it? Sorry, I'll get it for you just a second. So, yeah. So now we have Joan Severance. She was on the show and she did an episode with Stephen Bauer. Stephen Bauer, we know him from so many movies. We know him from, we'll always remember him as Manolo on Scarface. Let's see here. He was in Gleaming the Cube with Christian Slater and everything. And that was one of the first episodes it was called Safe Sex. Now on that episode, what ends up happening is you got Joan Severance's character here. She's, basically your go, always on the go businesswoman doesn't really have time for relationships or any of that dating or any of that kind of stuff. She's got kind of a real busy life and she's always doing stuff and everything else. And so, at one point she's on the street and it's raining, it's pouring rain. And Stephen Bauer pulls up in a cab and he's like telling her, look, you can get in the cab with me. You'll be safe. You need to get out of the rain. You'll be dry. And we'll take you wherever you want to go and, get you some good dry clothes, and everything else. And so she decides she's going to go with him. And he proposes, I've got, a nice hot bowl of soup at home and there's plenty enough, I can't eat it all by myself and you're more than welcome, get you some hot soup in you and everything else, so that way you don't catch cold. And, she's reluctant at first, but then she agrees to do it. And so anyway, so they go back to his apartment and, they're talking and everything else. And they realize there's a lot of chemistry between the two of them. And they get into this very wild, passionate sex. And when it's over, he's all like, wait a minute, I want us to make a bargain and stuff. And she's like, what, you want to start dating now? And all this. And he's like, no, I want us to meet again and have sex again. And, do like kind of like a Tuesdays and Thursdays kind of a thing. And at first she agrees, she thinks it's a great idea. And she's all like, here I am, busy businesswoman and, don't really have time for relationships or any of that kind of thing. So this could really work out for me. And Tuesdays and Thursdays, a good solution and stuff like that. No, no having to get to know each other or anything like that. Basically just a kind of like I wouldn't even say friends with benefit, just basically, for lack of a better word, they're just fuck buddies. And so, she goes to his place and he tells her that, here you can, you can talk about whatever desires you have, they'll be fulfilled. And that's kind of the thing, it's like, we're going to fulfill each other's desires and all these kind of things. And they're having these, fantastic sexual encounters and it's very sexy, very erotic, very romantic. But little bit by little bit, she gets to where she wants to start to know more about him. And he's getting irritated with that and all this kind of stuff. And at one point, her father dies and she has nowhere to go. So she goes to him and asks him to comfort her, which he's kind of a little weirded out by it, but he does agree to do it and stuff. And then he leaves and she figures that, well, that's it. She, she figures she scared him off and that's it. She's never going to see him again and all this other kind of stuff. But then a couple of weeks later, she gets a message from him telling, I'm back, let's meet up and everything else, that there was a family emergency, things like that. I had to go and, I'm back now. And he's like, we can either pick up where we left off or if you want to, get more involved, we can do that too. So they end up falling in love and having a relationship and everything else. So that's pretty much that story. And it's a very well done story. It's, the acting is good. The writing is good. Then we move on to the next story, which is Double Dare. That one has Arnold Vosloo, who, we remember as the Mummy and the Brandon Fraser Mummy movies. And him and this lady, they're working in separate office buildings at night. And they start playing this little game where they start daring each other. Like, she dares him, like they're sending faxes to each other. And she's married, but, they start playing this little game. He tells her, he writes her, I dare you to take off your blouse. She does it, and then she sends him a piece of paper, I dare you to take off your shirt. Then he sends her paper saying, I dare you to take off your skirt. And then she sends, I dare you to take off your pants, so on and so forth. And the thing is what she ends up doing is she ends up start getting this kind of, sexual energy, and she's getting kind of a charge from it, and it's kind of fun. And what she does is she uses it to spice up her love life. She goes home to her husband, she's bringing all the sexual energy home to him, and they're having this great, wild, passionate sex and everything else. And it's not dawning on her that, that at some point he might want it to go further than that. But, at one point he does come to her and he says, it's time for us to stop playing games, and we need to, really, we really need to embrace our our sex and everything else. And she's like, no, sorry, I'm married and it's not going to happen, never will, and all this other kind of stuff. And at one point, she even catches him, she thinks that they're getting ready to play their little game, but she looks down on his office bill and she sees him having sex with a woman on top of office desk and everything else. And that kind of kills the mood for her. So anyway, so there was that story. And then we have You Have the Right to Remain Silent. Sorry, just one second. Throat's getting a little bit dry here. Sorry, mate. Just getting a little spot of tea. Anyway, then the next story we have is You Have the Right to Remain Silent. And that's actually a very interesting story. You have Denise Crosby, who we all remember from Pet Sematary and Star Trek Next Generation, so on and so forth. And in this story, she plays a police officer, and she's talking about she always goes to the gym, and she notices all these guys, and they look great and all this other kind of stuff. But there's this one guy, and she's like, I always get attention from these guys, but there's this one guy that's really good looking and stuff, but for some reason I can never get his attention. And and just for whatever reason, he just doesn't. She shows no interest in her. And her being a cop, she goes and she takes her stick and she busts his taillight. And so she pulls him over one night. She decides she's gonna get this guy no matter what. So she pulls him over and she's talking to him and stuff and tells him to get out of the car, and she's doing it very professionally, very much like a police officer would. Of course, he's like, you have no reason to arrest me. You're arresting me because I have a tail light out. That doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, officer. And she's just like, sir, please, get in the back of the car and all this stuff. So he does, she handcuffs him and he complies. And she takes him to this warehouse that, was, she says that, that it was a perfect place because it's secluded and they had a drug bust there and all this other kind of stuff. And then she takes him, she ties him to this, well, not ties him, but she cuffs him to this kind of like dentist chair, and she starts asking him questions, and she's starting to take her clothes off, and she's getting into this very sexy lingerie, and she's wanting to know more about him, and he's kind of like not really giving anything up and all this other kind of stuff. And, and she's, like seducing him and everything else. And they're kind of having like a power struggle, a battle of wills with each other and stuff. And, ultimately she's able to kind of break his resolve a little bit. And, Denise Crosby looks amazing, naked in this, wow. And then, she seduces him. They have this very passionate love scene and everything else. And as it turns out, over time, that their relationship, she find out from that one night, she just kind of broke the surface with him, and she's breaking him more and more and more until finally he totally caves in and basically, comes to be the man that she wants. And so that's pretty much where that one ends. So now we're up to episode 4, which is Talk to Me, Baby. Now this is a really good one. This one here, you have Richard Tyson, who was in Two Mun Junction, but a lot of people would remember him as the bully who terrorizes Casey Siemaszko's character in 3 O'Clock High, and he's been in plenty of other movies. Hayride, I believe it was Flight of the Living Dead. I think he was in that. Plenty of other movies. But anyway, though, he plays this guy, and he's taking his girlfriend out for the evening, and he decides the best thing to do is take her to a bar for a wet t-shirt contest. And so he's in there, he's enjoying it and everything else. Of course, she's, she's French. She's not enjoying any of this stuff. She's not, just not getting into it. And she decides she's going to go to the bathroom. And so he's hanging back, and, and one of these girls from the wet t-shirt contest comes and, puts the moves on him, and he takes her into the bathroom. He's getting ready to have sex with her and stuff. Well, his girlfriend, she hears him, and she goes into the bathroom, sees him there. And so he goes and chases after her. She's about ready to walk home, but he grabs her and puts her inside his, muscle car, and they start driving. And so he's, at first he's in there, he's kind of giving her all these, he's giving her like every kind of bullshit reason he can think of why he's why he did what he did. And, he's in there, it's like, oh, it was like, it was like it was me, but it wasn't really me. And, it was like a out of body experience. Yeah, that's right, and all that kind of stuff. And she's not buying it. She's not going into this bullshit and stuff. And so he thinks, well, if I do this, she'll be okay. Like if I put on this song, I put in this tape. Here's your favorite tape. I play your tape, and all this stuff. She just takes the tape out and just throws it out the window and stuff like that. And he's like, man, isn't anything sacred anymore? And so he's, like trying to come up with, he's like, yeah, I might be ready to lose my job. And, I'm going through a lot of stress at work and everything else. So yeah, there's just so many things going on and everything else. And, and she's not having it, and stuff. Then he starts to kind of like switch his tune a little bit. Then he starts talking about like, do you remember when we did this? Do you remember when, you were so horny that, we had sex all night. Every time I was about ready to drift off to sleep, you woke me up. You were ready for the next round. Do you remember that time we played strip poker? The best thing about strip poker is even when you lose, you win, and he starts talking about like all these wonderful memories he has with her and all these wonderful things that they've done together, all these great experiences that they had, sexual and otherwise. And then he starts realizing like she won't talk to him. He's like, talk to me, baby. Talk to me. Talk to me, baby. Please talk to me. Just say something. Curse me out. Anything. And stuff like that. And he's all like, I'm going to go ahead and just crash the fucking car. Because if you're not going to talk to me, there's no point in this anymore. And, he's all like, I'm nothing without you. I can't believe how fucking stupid I was. And I really screwed things up. If you don't talk to me and let me try to fix it and everything, I don't know. We may as well fucking die. Because without you, I don't want to live anyway. And all this other kind of stuff. And, we come to find out that like, he does. He crashes the car and everything else. And she just she climbs on top of him, starts taking her clothes off. She's like, ooh, I love foreplay and everything else. And then, but that was really what was really interesting about that story was that, a guy who starts off kind of giving the bullshit answers, but then he starts realizing like, wait a minute, look at all these wonderful things she's done for me and everything else. How can I be so fucking stupid and everything else? And, and he's completely remorseful for what he's done and everything else. So, so now we're going to move on to the next story, which is called Just Like That. And this is the one that has our buddy Matt LeBlanc in there. And this one also has Nina Simasko, who she was in the movie Airheads. She was in Corey Haim's the late Corey Haim's big sister in License to Drive. She's in movies like, The Haunting of Molly Hartley. She's in a lot of movies and television. And she's also the sister of Casey Simasko, who is, we know him from Young Guns and Stand By Me and Storm of the Century, 3 O'Clock High, all these movies. And in this one, you got Nina Simasko's character. She's, studying for the bar. She's getting ready to become a lawyer and stuff like that. And she meets two guys. One of them is Matt LeBlanc, who's like a, he's basically a mail boy. He's like a courier, riding around on a bike. And then there's this other guy. He's a lawyer and everything else. And they both ask her out. She starts having an affair with both of them. And it's kind of interesting, it's kind of interesting the way that they do this because, in a lot of instances, they would make the woman be malicious or cruel or bitchy somehow. In this one, Nina Simasko, she's none of those things. She realizes like, that she's hurting these two guys by seeing two guys at the same time. And, but the thing is though, it's all like, she's not being mean about it. She's not being horrible about it. Why is she seeing these two guys? Because she likes both of them. It's not like one is a failure in any way. She's not looking at like Matt LeBlanc's character and saying, oh, he's a total failure where this guy's a success. Or she's not looking at the lawyer saying, oh, he's a total failure where Matt LeBlanc is a success. And she's trying to kind of juggle dating these two guys at the same time, but eventually it does come to a head. And and she ends up, telling them like, she comes clean and she admits that she was seeing both of them. And, she tells them, it wasn't, you guys didn't do anything wrong. It was, you guys didn't fail in any way, or there's, no slur against either one of you guys. Why did I do it? Because I liked both of you. I just really liked you both. I didn't mean any harm by it. I know I did a bad thing by doing this to you both, but you know, so, and she ends up basically letting them both go. And she's like, I need to go and, pass the bar and become a lawyer and stuff like that. So that's a good story. Let's see. The next one, Another Woman's Lipstick. This one we have Miriam Diabo, who a lot of people would remember her if they ever watched the show The Wonder Years. She played Fred Savage's big sister on that show, kind of the hippie sister and stuff. And she's married to this guy, and it seems like they have this great, perfect marriage and all this other kind of stuff. And, at one point she's like cleaning the house, like picking up laundry and stuff. And she sees, another woman's lipstick on her man's shirt collar. And then she's going through all these emotions. She's wondering why this has happened. She's crying. She's upset. She's angry. She's going through all this stuff and everything else. And so she decides she's going to find out who this woman is. So she kind of starts following her husband when he goes to meet this woman and everything else. And she decides she wants to know what it is about this woman that my husband finds so appealing. Why, what is about me that's not doing it for him or whatever else. And so she, decides to get dressed up she dresses up as a man. And then she goes and meets this woman. They start dancing, and, and she kind of, the more she spends time with this woman and getting close to her and intimate with her and everything, the more she starts to understand why her man, went for her. And then the woman is saying, I know your husband. Yes, the time I was with him, I needed him, but it's like right now I need you, and, I want you and everything else. And can you make me feel and things like that? And so it basically, she just wants to understand who this woman was and why her husband went for him and stuff, went for her and all this stuff. And so, they have to start, of course, he has to apologize. They have to start putting their life back together again. So anyway, so there's that story. And now the next one is Erotica. I got to be honest with you, I don't really remember much about that one. I just remember kind of like Fast and the Furious, but with some softcore sex in it. I'm sorry, I failed on that one. But okay, now we're up to episode 8, which is Jake's story, which, brings us back to our buddy Jake, played by David Duchovny. And like always, he's going to the post office. He's getting his letters and everything else. And he meets a woman. This woman's played by Cheryl Lee, who, a lot of people will remember her as Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks. She was in John Carpenter's Vampires. She's been in a lot of other movies and TV and stuff. And so she meets Jake and she starts talking to him. But Jake, he's still dealing with, losing Alex and stuff. And he's like, I'm not really interested in meeting anybody. But she's all like, come on, let's just hang out and bullshit. We'll have fun and all this other kind of stuff. And she's like, come out on a date with me. It'll be fun and everything else. And so, he decides, okay, finally he'll go on a date with her and stuff. And, she's kind of into, doing some high risk kind of things and stuff like that. And they start having this very passionate sexual affair and things like that. But ultimately, it comes down to Jake just still hasn't gotten over Alex. And he's all like, she was the love of my life. And I don't know if I'll ever get over her. I try, and ultimately, they part on good terms, but it doesn't work out for the two of them and things like that. But anyway, so that was that story. Now we move on to Accidents Happen, which is episode number 9. This one has Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club, but I'm going to be honest with you. If you're sitting here thinking, Ali, I get to see Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club nude in this movie? No, you don't. Okay, the story basically, you have Ali Sheedy. She's married to this guy, and they have they're rich, they have a lot of money and everything else, and, they tend to have this little thing where they like to dress up in costumes and play for each other, do role playing, things like that, kind of keep the spice in their marriage and stuff like that. And she has like this red kind of curly haired wig on and everything else. Well, they have this maid, and the maid is Spanish, and she's, basically she's eyeing like, I'm trying to remember if he was like the gardener or the pool boy, something like that. But anyway, she's eyeing him, and then, she turns out she wants to seduce him and all this other kind of stuff. And at one point, she figures she's going to go and she's going to, wear Ali Sheedy's get up and everything else to try to lure this guy in to have sex with her and everything else. The only problem is it backfires, because what ends up happening is Ali Sheedy's husband comes in and he thinks it's her. And so he starts going at her and everything else and all this kind of stuff. And they're going doggy style and all this kind of stuff. But then he pulls the wig off and sees that it's the maid, and he freaks out. She freaks out and all this other kind of stuff. And he's about ready to go ape shit. He's like, if my wife finds out, she's going to fucking kill me and all this other kind of stuff. And so he's like trying to figure out, he's like, what the hell were you doing in there and all this other kind of stuff, and screaming at her and all this other kind of stuff. Well, Ali Sheedy does find out what happened and everything. And so they're screaming and yelling and all this other kind of stuff. And she's like, how could you do this to me? And he's like, I swear, honey, I swear I thought it was you and all this kind of stuff. And then the guy, the gardener or the pool boy, whatever he is, he comes along and he tells her, he tells him, hey, it really, your husband, he made a mistake. It wasn't his fault or anything like that. She dressed this way to excite me. She did it for me. Okay, just your husband made a mistake. He thought it was you. He had no intentions to move on her or anything like that. He thought it was you. So kind of like the whole issue kind of gets resolved, and then so Ali Sheedy and her husband, they go back to being the happy married couple, and then the maid and the pool boy, they begin their sexual adventure and becoming very intimate and sexual and everything else. So sorry, just one second. I need another drink. Sorry. Sorry about this. We're almost done here, I promise. So then we're on episode number 10, The Bounty Hunter, which that was a good one. Basically, you have this woman who's a bounty hunter, and she's, tracking down this guy that, he ran off on his, basically kind of like his mistress. He ran off, he took her money and everything else, and he's been hiding out. And this bounty hunter, she's, been sent to go track this guy and bring him back and all this other kind of stuff. And, but it turns out that, she dresses up really sexy. She got this tight little dress on, and she's looking really hot and all this other kind of stuff to kind of get him to go for her and everything else. But meanwhile, she's working with these two other guys, and they're sitting there, talking about, they're reading her journal, and in her journal, she's talking about she wants to have sex with this guy. She really wants to do him bad and all this other kind of stuff. And they're like, sitting there, oh my God, this bitch, she's gonna fuck this weasel, and he's gonna take advantage of her. He's gonna be able to blow smoke up her ass, and he'll get away. We'll never get our money, this and that and the other thing and all that stuff. And so we need to hurry up and get down there and all that. Well, meanwhile, she's seducing this guy, and this guy, he's really like putting on the charm, and he's really, like just, talking about what a great pie maker he is. And, he's like, here, try this, try that, and all this kind of stuff. But the entire time he already knows basically that she's the bounty hunter. She's there to, to arrest him and stuff. And so, they start, he's like trying to seduce her, and it's kind of like, on the one hand, she's kind of letting herself be seduced, but then at the same time, she's kind of fighting back and everything else. So they're kind of really like having this, struggle. They're having this struggle because on the one end, she's trying to arrest him and bring him in, but at the same time, she's, really just wanting to screw this guy's brains out and everything else. And so he's like, keeps trying to get away from her and everything else. And, so they're trying to deal with all that. And finally, just when he's about ready to get away, he's trying to sweet talk her and everything else so that she'll let him go and all this other kind of stuff. And, he's like, oh, if you let me go, I could fall in love with you and all this other kind of stuff. And then the other cops, they bust in, with this woman who he took her money and ran away and everything else. And, he's all, she goes up to him. First thing she asks him, did you sleep with this woman? And, he's all like, me? No. And she just knocks the shit out of this guy. And she's like, when are you going to stop lying to me, huh? And she's like, taking you back. You're mine now and all this other kind of stuff. And so, she kind of turns to the bounty hunter. She kind of like, yeah, I get it. Why you, if you screwed him, I get why you would and stuff. But he's mine now. So they go off, and she gets the money. And so pretty much that's how all that works out and stuff. So now we're on to episode number 11, Weekend Past. That was a good one. You have these women on this army base. They get a weekend pass. They decide they're going to go and, listen to some music, have some drinks, kick loose, have a great time. And one of these women, she's up there, and this guy, he's singing country songs and everything else, and she, takes him home for the night, and they have this really, erotic sex and everything else, and very passionate and all this other kind of stuff. And the next morning, she wakes up, she has no idea what happened. It turned out in a way, she kind of mentally blacked out because she drank tequila. And she said, yeah, I drink tequila. It does that to me, and all this other kind of stuff. And so, he's like trying to get her to remember what happened and everything else. And we come to find out this woman is very damaged. She was married to a guy. It didn't work out. She got in the army because she wanted to be something. She really wanted to prove her worth, things like that. And, and we find out she's really falling apart and everything else. And the guy's like, hey, I really do care about you. And she's like, what the hell? What do you want from me? What, you think just because I'm a woman, I'm not going to be able to cope with anything? It's like, oh, can't get by without a man around and all this other kind of stuff. And they start talking and everything else. And he helps her, they make a mess of the barracks when they first come in, and he helps her clean up and all this other kind of stuff. And, he's all like, call your man, just, get yourself some closure and stuff like that. And so she goes and she calls, and, she comes back, she tells him, yeah, it's over. It's done and everything. We're never getting back together again. And he's with another woman, and he's all like, well, you sure? And she's like, well, this woman's pregnant with his kid, and, he plans on staying with her. So yeah, pretty sure. And all this stuff. So, but he's all like, you know what? He's like, if you'd have me, I'd be happy to be there for you and, be your man and all this other kind of stuff. And they spend this very romantic, sexual Christmas Eve together and everything else. And he goes out on the road, but she says, they keep in touch and they still see each other and everything else. So now we got 2 more, I think. Yeah, 2 more. Double or Nothing. Okay, Double or Nothing. This one here is probably my least favorite episode of this season, mainly because, it's like, you got Paula Barbieri in here. Everybody remembers her from the OJ trial. And yeah. So, she plays this kind of pool shark, and she's, she's very good at playing pool. She's good at hustling people money for pool and stuff. Well, she meets this guy. It turns out, he's been hustling people for pool and stuff for years. And they team up, and, he's like, here, let me show you some tricks and everything else, so you make a lot of money and everything else. And they end up getting into an affair and stuff like that. And, kind of like they have to, ultimately they have to have this pool competition to find out who's the best and everything else. And so, but yeah, just kind of like, that's kind of like the only one I don't really endorse on this set, is because, this was pretty much around the time of the O.J. Simpson trial and stuff. And, Paula Barbieri, a lot of people thought she was like a lot of people who was, just trying to get money out of the Simpson murder case and everything else, and trying to like build a career off of that and everything else. So. And then finally we get to our last episode, which is How I Met My Husband, which this is a pretty interesting story. Now you have, you have this guy named Giuseppe, and he ends up, he goes to this woman who's a dominatrix. Turns out he's a gigolo. And he's, he's a good looking guy. He gets women to pay him to have sex for money and everything else. And so, he goes to this woman who's just barely starting out being a dominatrix. And she's, at first she seems like she's got promise and everything else. But as time goes on, she's, she's falling more and more in love with him. And she's telling him to stop going out screwing all these women and everything. And meanwhile, she meets up with him, and she propositions him, and he's like, no, I can't, because I promised this woman. And, he's able to finally put 2 and 2 together, that this woman and this dominatrix are the same person. And, he's like, I want to love you, and I want to marry you, and I want us to be together and everything else. She's like, well, which one, you're talking about, like, I have 2 sides of my personality. Which one do you like? And he's like, both. I want you both and everything else. And, but it's like, what do I tell my mother and everything else? And she's all like, just tell her the truth. She's not going to believe it anyway. But, yeah, just, but, so the 2 of them, they end up falling madly in love. And, you know, get into this very erotic relationship, and they end up, you know, getting married and stuff like that. So, but anyway, so yeah, we went through all the episodes of season 1 of Zalman King's The Red Shoe Diaries. I really, you know, if you want good erotica, I mean, really good erotica. Now, when I first watched this, you know, when I first watched this show, I went into this, you know, basically just because I just wanted to see beautiful naked women. Now, if you want to know, are you going to see that in this show? Yes, you will. There's lots of beautiful naked women. This show is very beautifully photographed. The women just look amazing. They look so stunning and gorgeous and sexy, and lots of TNA. If you know you're hoping you're going to see that, you are. Um, but you know there is a bonus to this, though. You actually get, you know, you're going to get the sexuality, you're going to get the sexiness and the eroticism and everything else. But you know what else you get with this? You get really good storytelling. You get good character development. You get interesting characters. This is not a show about, this is not a show about, who everybody, all men are assholes, all women are bitches. And, it's not that kind of a thing. It's like, these are characters that are written to be sympathetic, that you end up caring about them and really being interested in what goes on with them and everything else. So I definitely highly recommend this show. Kino Lorber put out season 1. I pray that they'll put out seasons 2 through 5. I remember, going into this show just wanting to see the nudity, but I was actually stunned when I saw the good storytelling, the good acting, the interesting characters, the interesting storylines coming out of this. And, I'm just overall amazed at what a great show this is, or it was. And, I really do. I mean, I think this is very, very well done. This is a very good story. And I'm sad that it only lasted for 5 seasons, but, I really would like to get the other 4 seasons. I'd love to have the whole collection of them one day, but hopefully if anybody from Kino Lorber ever sees this video, please, get on that. Get to work on season 2 of Red Shoe Diaries. But yeah, I can't recommend this show enough. The acting, the storytelling, the cinematography, the storylines, I mean, it's, you explore all different kinds of facets of relationships and love and sexuality and things like that. And, I really, if you want good erotica and good storytelling, I can't recommend this show enough. It really is a fantastic show. It really was. So anyway, that's going to do it. I think I talked long enough. I'm sorry that this video took so long, but then again, too, I did say we were going to go through the entire season of season 1 of Red Shoe Diaries. So, but anyway, that's going to be about it. So, if anybody took the time to watch this video, all this, thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like the video, please like and subscribe. And this is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for enduring all this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll come back for the next video. And again, thank you all very much. Have a good night.